40 hits you differently. You don't feel old, not exactly, but you start noticing things. The silence between you and your wife feels louder. The laughter that used to come easy doesn't. And sometimes, you wake up in the middle of the night wondering when your life became a loop of coffee, work, and pretending everything's fine. My name's Jack Turner. I live in a small town in Colorado, one of those quiet places where everyone waves at you but still talks behind your back. I've been married to Emily for 17 years. We have 2 kids, a mortgage, and what most people would call a good life. But I knew something was wrong the moment she stopped looking at me the same way. It started last winter. She joined a new gym across town, said she needed something just for herself. I encouraged it. Hell, I even paid for the membership. She deserved to feel good. She'd spent years raising our kids while I worked long hours at the auto shop. Then she started coming home late. Said the classes ran long, that she was helping a friend train. I didn't question it at first. I trusted her. I wanted to trust her. But then the little signs began. Perfume I didn't recognize. The way she suddenly guarded her phone, turning it face down every time it buzzed. Her laughter softer, secretive when she texted someone late at night. Still, I told myself I was overthinking it. That I was just tired, stressed, paranoid. Until the night I found her gym bag in the garage. It had been sitting in her car for days, so I brought it inside. When I opened it, a small card fell out, not a gym pass, but a folded note. Can't wait for tomorrow. Same room, same time, no name. Just that. I stood there, staring at those words, my hands shaking so bad I almost tore the paper. When she came home later, I asked how the gym was. She smiled, kissed my cheek, and said, "Tough class tonight." And just like that, the world split into the life I thought I had and the one I actually did. For the next few days, I pretended nothing was wrong. But I couldn't sleep, couldn't think straight. Every smile from her felt fake, every word a lie. Finally, I decided to follow her. It was Thursday. She said she had a late training session. I waited until she left, then grabbed my keys and tailed her car down Highway 12. My hands were sweating so badly I could barely grip the wheel. She didn't drive to the gym. She went west toward the hills, past the gas station, out to a small roadside motel called Redwood Lodge. I parked a few spots away, engine off, lights down. Watched her step out of the car. She looked nervous, kept checking her phone. Then he showed up. A tall guy, maybe mid-30s, muscular, clean-cut, wearing a sheriff's jacket. I recognized him instantly. Deputy Brian Cole. I'd known him for years. He was at our last barbecue, ate my food, shook my hand, told me my family was beautiful. And then, right there in that parking lot, he kissed my wife. The kind of kiss that tells you it's not the first. I sat there in the car, watching everything I built collapse in silence. I wanted to burst out, scream, break the door down. But something stopped me, something cold and dangerous that I hadn't felt before. Because I wasn't just angry. I was awake. I waited until they went inside. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to confront them. Not yet. No, I was going to destroy them both. After that night in the motel parking lot, the thing inside me that had been polite for decades broke. Polite had kept the peace, paid the bills, put the kids to bed, smiled for pictures. But polite also kept me blind. I wanted sight. So I set out to see everything. The funny thing about small towns is how loudly they pretend not to know. People who've lived here forever have mastered the art of looking away. But you only need one crack in the dam for water to find its way out. I started testing the scenes. First, I watched Brian. He wore the badge like a second skin, comforting to some, scary to others. He never seemed to sleep. He always showed up where he wasn't strictly necessary. Roadblocks at night when there were no accidents. Welfare checks at houses where no one was sick. He liked control. Everyone said so, in hushed admiration or rolling-eyed complaint. People who flirted with power tend to leave fingerprints on things they shouldn't touch. I couldn't follow him everywhere. So, I did the next best thing. I read old police reports at the library, obituary notices, meeting minutes. I learned the county's habits. I learned who owed who favors. It was boring work. The kind that looks like nothing in the movies but becomes everything in real life. Pages and pages of small, legal language that, when tied together, formed a picture of how things got done around here. Brian's name showed up in 2 ways. Once, as the officer who filed a perfectly neat report, a faded story about a backwoods accident that closed a local man's case cleanly and cheaply. Another time in a photograph in the paper, Brian shaking hands with Garrison Wolf, the developer everyone secretly complained about when they thought nobody was listening. Wolf smiled in that photo like he owned the town. That's the problem with power. It loves company. Then it protects itself. I started going to the bar earlier, the kind of place men come to drown a small, boxed worry in a larger amber one. It's where people let things slip. A contractor who'd always tip me $5 too little for a beer told me about a gravel road grant that had been redirected to a shell company. A woman complained about a pothole that got filled only after someone she knew texted the sheriff. I folded these scraps in my head like origami. They made shapes. One night, I followed Brian after work. He left the station and drove toward the river, then turned onto a dirt access road not many people knew. He parked near the old mill and met Garrison Wolf on a rickety bridge. I kept my distance, at the tree line, the cold like a knife at my ear. They spoke in low tones. I didn't catch everything, but I caught a phrase that felt like a punch: keep the Turners quiet. My name in their mouths was a scar. I crouched there until they left, heart hammering, the realization forming in slow, dangerous layers. This wasn't a private affair between my wife and a lousy deputy. This was a thread in something bigger. Maybe Brian used his badge to collect favors. Maybe Emily was caught in a current she couldn't swim out of. Or worse, maybe she was using it to shield us. I needed proof. Not gossip, not half-heard threats. Proof that could be shown to people who mattered: the newspaper, state investigators, maybe even a lawyer. Proof that would make these men squirm in the light. So I began collecting it. I pulled old invoices from my shop, the ones I'd approved for town work, and compared them to public records. Some numbers matched. Others didn't. An invoice for road material listed a supplier I'd never heard of. The deposit went to an account with a name that matched the one the contractor had whispered in the bar: Redthorn Logistics. I traced phone numbers and cross-referenced them with vehicle registrations. Connections appeared, thin as spider silk, but connections nonetheless. Then I hit something sharp. A utility payment that included a transfer from a private account directly to the sheriff's office discretionary fund, not listed on any departmental budget. Discretionary funds weren't illegal by default. They're useful. But suddenly, the timing of the transfer matched a couple of invoices rerouted to the shell companies. The pattern looked like a funnel. Money moved from municipal mouths into private pockets. I didn't go to the cops. I didn't go to the press. Going public too soon would have been like stepping into a trap built by men who had set it for decades. They'd swallow me whole if I offered myself without teeth. Instead, I made a file, printed copies, sticky notes, an index. I put it in my garage under a pile of old floor tiles, right where nobody would think to look except me. Meanwhile, I tightened the leash on Emily, not in the physical, possessive way men sometimes do. I just asked more small questions. Where were you last Thursday? Who did you meet? Why that hotel? Her answers were clean, practiced, sometimes fractured at the edge. The thing she never expected was that I had time to listen now. I'd always been too busy for the slow details. Not anymore. One night she came home late, fingernails bare from what looked like nervous picking. She tried to cozy up on the couch, but I could see she was wrapped in a different fabric of shame. How was your day? I asked. Like a man rehearsing normalcy. She gave me the answer she always gave: long. The softness in her eyes was gone. She'd been unmade and remade into someone who could compartmentalize crime between gym sessions and PTA meetings. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the file into the air and watch papers fly like confetti of truth. But the file stayed in the garage. I'd learned that revenge is not a dramatic shout, it's a slow process that uses time as its blade. So I set another, subtler piece in motion. I sent an anonymous tip to a reporter in Denver, not the rad that liked sensationalism, but a small investigative desk that had actually broken stories in the past. The mail was carefully crafted, no threats, just a breadcrumb linking a Redthorn Logistics invoice to a public contract. No names attached, no fingerprints. Then I waited. And while I waited, I watched Brian get sloppy. Power makes people careless. He started arriving at the shop more often, not for fixes but for casual talk, the kind of talk that leaves a laugh that lingers like a confession. He looked at my truck differently, like a man possessed with entitlement. Once he grinned and said, loud enough that the cashier heard, "You buying the grills next week? I got a friend who'll cut us a deal." I smiled and promised myself two things. One, that I'd not let him intimidate me. Two, that when the dominoes finally fell, every one of them would have his name on it. A week later, the reporter called me. He had a lead. He wanted to meet. I felt my palms go cold, a combination of relief and terror. The pieces were moving now because someone else had picked up the trail I'd started. Sometimes, justice needs more mouths than one to roar. I drove to the meeting with the printed folder in the passenger seat. The town slid past the window like scenery. For the first time since the motel parking lot, the knot in my chest loosened a hair. The next steps would be loud, dangerous. I couldn't know how it would end. But I knew this. Secrets are deceptively soft until you pry them loose, and once they're in the open, there's no putting them back. On the drive home, my phone buzzed with a single text from an unknown number. "You should be careful. Not everything from the past wants to be dug up." The message was a reminder I'd poked a hornet's nest. The hornets could sting, one by one, but I'd already been stung. I'd been sleeping next to it for years. Now the choice was mine. Pull the nest out and risk getting chewed alive, or leave it and remain a quiet, broken man. I turned the key in the ignition and chose teeth. The reporter met me at a diner off the highway, the kind with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tastes like intentions. He was younger than I expected, not flashy, just tired in a way that meant he'd been up too late reading files and too early filing motions. He slid a cup of black coffee across the table and, without any small talk, opened a manila folder. "You Jack Turner?" he asked, eyes on mine. I nodded. He tapped the top sheet, an invoice, clean as a confession. This came from a contractor on a county road project. It routed through Redthorn Logistics. We traced the account. It's a shell, but there are transfers, Jack, to accounts that link back to discretionary funds and people in uniform. Hearing it aloud felt like someone pulling a bandage off a long wound. My hands were steady. "You need names," I said. He already had some. "We can't print until we have more. But I can say there's a nexus between municipal contracts and private payouts. We want your cooperation. Anonymity if you need it." I wanted to throw the folder up in the air, let the pages fly like the lies they were. But the reporter's face was grave. "If we go public with this and we're wrong, it's libel. If we're right, it's war." I left the diner with a weight across my shoulders that felt like armor, heavy but protective. The next hours were a blur of calls I didn't return and names I wrote down like nails. I drove to the bank, to the county offices, the registrar, places people don't usually go unless they're stuck. I copied what I could, took pictures, recorded doors, memorized faces. When I got home, Emily was at the sink, rinsing a plate. She looked like she always did, hair pulled back, apron on, humming to herself. It almost broke me. I wanted to laugh, to cry, to shake her until she told me the truth and then apologize for the shaking. Instead, I hugged her from behind and breathed in her hair, tasting the same perfume that had betrayed me months ago. It smelled like denial. That smell again, I thought, and kept it to myself. That night, we ate in silence. Milo curled at our feet. My daughter drew a picture and asked if we could go camping. My son mentioned a school game next week. The small things, the ordinary life. I loved them, fiercely, and that made everything else sharper. The next morning, a car rolled slowly past my driveway, idling a moment too long. Then it turned and disappeared. I noticed the license plate out of county dirty, nothing I could track with a quick glance. My stomach tightened. Whoever was watching had started to show a face. 2 days later, my shop was vandalized. Someone had poured paint over the company's sign and spray-painted a crude message on the garage door. "Don't dig." The police came, dusted for prints, asked questions with practiced neutrality. Brian was there, of course, sympathetic, hand on my shoulder, concerned like a blanket, informative and gross. He told me to file a report, promised extra patrols around the neighborhood. His eyes lingered on the driveway a second too long. His sympathy sat wrong, like a staged movie prop left in a backyard. I filed the report, and as soon as Brian left, I walked over to the ruined sign and pulled my phone out. I recorded the spray paint, the angle of the strokes, even the scent of the solvent, small things others would miss. I pressed my thumb to the wet paint without thinking the stupid risk, then wiped my hands on my jeans and photographed the smear in high resolution. If they wanted to frighten me, they'd at least left evidence. That night, Emily came to bed late. Her hair smelled like someone else's cologne. I wanted to confront her there on the pillow, whisper until she confessed. But the kids slept 2 rooms over. I held myself back. "Did you see the shop?" I asked instead, my voice cautious. She nodded, eyes clouding. "I did. I'm sorry, Jack. I know you're scared." Her hand found mine in the dark. For a moment, the old warmth flickered. I wanted to believe it. I wanted to fall asleep cradling this small truth. Then a text came through on my phone, and no number, no words. Just a photo. A single image of my daughter's backpack, sitting in the front yard, the tag visible, the camera angle low as if taken from someone crouching at the hedgerow. The caption, "Don't make us dig." I woke my heart screaming. Emily woke too, and when I showed her the picture, she went pale. Actually pale in a way that suggested fear that hadn't been there before. "We need to leave," she whispered. "We need to get out of here." Get out? My brain supplied the easy counter: pack the kids, go to her sister's, but her next words stopped me. "They know about the insurance transfer. They think we have the money. Garrison thinks you're the one pulling at threads." Garrison. The name hit like acid. I thought of the reporter, the invoices, the shell accounts. I thought of deputies meeting developers on bridges. I thought of the motel parking lot, and the kiss that had started this fire. "You set the tip to the reporter?" she asked suddenly, voice accusing. Her face softened. "You did, didn't you?" My hands trembled. I hadn't told her. I hadn't told anyone. "No." She narrowed her eyes. "Then who else knows?" I had no answer. The truth smelled like smoke, and the smoke meant a fire was close. The town had shifted under my feet. Allies became threats. Friends became actors in a play I hadn't auditioned for. The safe places were disappearing. That night, sleepless and furious, I opened the garage and checked the file under the tiles. Everything was there: invoices, printouts, the reporter's contact. I tucked a USB into my wallet and wrote a single sentence on a scrap of paper: "If anything happens to me, find Mike Carlson at the Denver desk. He has everything." Then I put it in my sock drawer. Rituals of a man who had started to expect the worst. I knew then that I had crossed the line. I had not only unearthed rot, I had announced its presence. The town had noticed. The hornets were circling, and now they knew exactly where the noise was coming from. On my way to work the next morning, someone had left a brick on my porch with a single key taped to it, the motel room key from the night I followed Emily. It felt like an offer and a threat all at once. "We can keep going. Do you want the rest?" I picked up the key with 2 fingers, metal cold like a new coin. From somewhere down the street, a dog barked. The morning was ordinary as hell, but it wasn't ordinary for me anymore. My life had split into before and after, and now the hornets were starting to bite.